Hello, YouTube. This is an alcohol review of Redemption Rye. 92 proof, 46 alcohol by volume, 750 ml bottle. According to the label here, it says has a mash base of 95% rye, 5% barley, aged in charred oak barrels. And it gives a small lesson of how rye was the bourbon of choice at one point in time in the empire. You take that with a grain of salt. I'm not a fan of rye, but it was recommended on the podcast, the Country Squire. So I decided to give it a try. And we shall see what we see. It is a wooden top on the cork. It is crushed cork to make said cork. I bring that up because at one point in time, cork was the chosen material for the cork, and there was a blight on the cork trees, making it quite expensive. Many alternatives were created for it, and this is one of them. Is just simply taking chunks of cork, gluing it together to create a cork, versus say using synthetics. All choice by the distiller, to be honest. And this is what we get. It is a golden brown with much yellow hues in there. And when we do our swirl test, we start getting some legging. Now, the reason for the swirl test, the reason for looking for the legs, which is the solution, the bourbon running back down into the glass, is that as you swirl it, it cakes the inside, and as it drains back down again, the faster it does, the less sweetness, less residual sugars is left in the bourbon or the rum or whatever it may be. So the slower, the thicker the solution, and that thickness is usually caused by sugars. So before you even taste it, you can do a swirl test, and you can see whether or not it's going to be watery on your palate, or whether or not it's going to be a little syrupy on your palate, depending on how fast the legging starts. And this, it is fairly slow. So the presumption is it's going to have a sweet taste to it, as well as being a little thick on the palate. You smell orange, you smell lemons, you smell that, of course, traditional bourbon nose to it. A little bit of sugar in there, like white icing. And you get that ethanol. There's an ethanol burn floating in the back. And then there's a weightiness to it. Maybe it's like vanilla. And you get all those flavors, but they're very light compared to black pepper, which is classic rye. If you really want to know the difference between a rye bourbon and a regular bourbon, a regular whiskey, it's black pepper. Now, there's no black pepper in the mash bill, nothing along that line, but the rye creates a black pepper taste from beginning to end. And this Redemption Rye has it in spades. There's a light burn, excuse me, a hint of bite. But all in all, you're inundated with black pepper. Then you get the flavors of caramel, as well as lemon and orange and other the flavors you really would like to get out of a nice bourbon. This was recommended on the Country Squire because they felt that it was very smooth and much smoother than the bulk of the bourbons that they have been testing and trying out on their podcast. I would not give it such high marks. Now it's starting to get a bit of a bitter. It has a long hang time. And that's the reasons why I would not give it such high marks. I'm not a huge fan of long hang times, which means it's when you sip it till you can no longer taste. You sip it, swallow it, and no longer taste what you just swallowed. It's that time period when you can no longer have that flavor. The longer that time, the longer the hang time. Think of a football in the air. The longer the hang time. They did not mark about any long hang times on it, but they did remark about how that it is not burn and it's not very bitey. Well, they are very correct on that. It's a light burn, a very light bite to it. All in all, if you like black pepper on your steak, you're gonna like this. It's rye has that taste. As for the rest of it, it's fair, midland. There's a hint of burn, hint of bite, enough to make you know that it has a bit of a high alcohol level. In this case, it's 46 alcohol by volume. Nothing too great, nothing too low, just middle of the road. What makes it stand out is that rye pepper. Usually I like to try to put a time of year when this would be best for. And I would have to say winter because it's such a strong flavor of that rye. If the rye wasn't there, it would be fairly good for almost all year round. It's just a middle of the road bourbon. But that rye is so strong and so domineering. Borderline a turnoff. That I would have to say sometime where you want heavier flavors. And that to me is wintertime. Not even late fall, not even early spring. Smack dab when the snow's coming down. Would this be perfect for it? I don't like rye. So I would have to say, for my palate, no. If you like black pepper, you're probably going to love this stuff. Give it a try. Tell me what you think. This is Redemption Rye. There we go. Any comments about this particular product down below? Be warmly accepted, as always. Or better yet, go out, buy a bottle, and do a review on the YouTube for the rest of us in the YouTube spirits community to hear your thoughts on Redemption Rye and hear what you have to say about it. Maybe you are a black pepper fan. You very well could love it. I myself, well, I'm just some fool in the middle of nowhere. So definitely give it a try. See what you think. Until next time, keep on drinking.